President Trump doubling down, posting on Truth Social, his own social media platform, since he was banned from Twitter. Remember that? The pardons, President Trump wrote, that sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by autopen. Now, I got to say, Matt, this is it's a lot, and it raises, I mean, it's fun, but it also raises a very real question, and whether there were White House staffers in Washington while Joe Biden was in the U.S. Virgin Islands when a lot of these pardons were signed by a computer. An autopen, so he didn't even sign them. We don't know if he knows that these pardons were issued, but he didn't do it.
Well, I think we have a legitimate reason to ask questions about this after the last 4 years. I worked in multiple Senate offices that had autopens, but they were only really used for ceremonial things. I think with Joe Biden, we have evidence over several years now that there were actions taken in his name that he wasn't aware of. One of the most prominent being Speaker Johnson tells a story about a one-on-one meeting with Joe Biden where he asked him, why did you pause LNG exports, liquid natural gas exports to Europe? This helped Vladimir Putin. This was bad for our own economy. This was bad for industry. Joe Biden said, wait, I didn't do that. And so it was clear to Speaker Johnson that Joe Biden had no idea what his own name had been put on. And now we have so many examples of this, of staffers using his name to push really radical policy, everything from the gold bars off the Titanic to those pardons that you're talking about that were announced when he was walking into President Trump's inauguration. Now we know the autopen had a big role in that. So, you know, President Obama had his pen and phone, and President Biden seemed to have an autopen and didn't really seem to call anybody. So, big mess.
And Emily, I mean, I've got to say, it's 100% true, and there are a lot of autopens in Washington, but they're for Christmas cards and little Timmy's birthday and, you know, things like that, but not for pardons for gangs of criminals that the Democrat Party loves.
Well, Mercedes asked the right question. What did we get from the Biden-Harris administration? Well, from Biden, we got Scrabble sentences that the American people attempted to decode, and we got an 8 p.m. bedtime. So it's nice that the adults are back in charge. We now have a president who signs his own executive orders and can field questions from the media. The shadow presidency of the Biden administration was a disgrace, and it's so nice to see transparency and accountability back in the White House.
And we do have to ask who was running the show, who was actually...
We all know, but we all know that these pardons are not going to get rid of. They've.
We don't know that.
No, but you think the Supreme Court is going to side with Trump on this one? There's no, he is not on firm legal ground. A president's pardon power is basically unlimited, and so he can say what he wants on Truth Social, and that might spin up an investigation of Tony Fauci. But it would be really interesting to see if President Trump has ever used an autopen for himself, and what are they going to dig back old executive orders he signed last time around?
Daniel, but I mean, the pardons, which are a very big deal, and I got to tell you, if the one thing President Trump loves to do is sign his own material, and with the pardons, especially when, I'll tell you, just being at the White House during the time, you know, President Trump took these pardons very seriously. He would ask all the right questions. He was constantly digging in deeper to really be like, do we allow for this pardon or do we not? This doesn't seem to be the case with Joe Biden.
There was a lot of debate, I will say, that was publicly reported about how they were questioning, do we give a preemptive pardon to family members, to Fauci? Because then that almost indicates some certain level of guilt. And so it's not like they just willy-nilly one day the White House said, oh, we're going to give a pardon. This was a debate for months inside the administration.
Well, then maybe Joe Biden should have signed the pardons, which he didn't do. And since his brain doesn't bring a lot of legal force, it's not clear. I don't think it's clear.
I don't think the autopen has a mind of its own. You know,
no, you're right.
You can delegate power.
Which 20-year-old weasel in the White House was giving people pardons and
probably in the White House staff sector?
But here's the deal. You could use the autopen for, like, correspondence. Let's say it's Daniel's 40th birthday. Then you're like, okay.
I have 5 more years for that.
Okay, fine. But then,
Trump is going to be out of office.
You want a letter from Donald Trump, and it would be like, happy birthday, Daniel. And then they do an autopen. I'm sorry, for a pardon, that's very serious, and I just don't understand.
And they also pardoned so many people. So
that they did pardon a lot of criminals, all those family criminals and the Democrat criminals. And he might still be in power in 5 years.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.